Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consulting Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, our private Facebook group, be sure to come join us. We just surpassed 6,000 members in there. And if you're not a member and if you're a coach, consultant, or service provider who's serious about being surrounded by a community of like-minded individuals, then we'd love to have you. Now, with that being said, today's guest is Heather Thatcher. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you so much, Extus. I'm very glad to be here.
You're so welcome. So, Heather, tell us a bit about your coaching. What do you do in terms of coaching and consulting? Who do you help?
So I help, my main niche is stress, but I help a bunch of different demographics with that. So I help entrepreneurs with that because, again, when our stress response is kicking in, it cuts off our higher level thinking brain, which is something that's very essential for entrepreneurs to have. So stress management is very important for entrepreneurs. I also work in more of the life coaching sphere. I work with people pleasers and I work with high achievers. And then I also work in the corporate sphere as well. I do corporate consulting, again, around stress management and employee mindset training to be able to empower their employees.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So stress is the core of the core theme of what you do?
Absolutely. And I started my career as a registered nurse working in the intensive care units. And I saw that a lot of people were coming into the ICU because of stress-related illnesses. So I knew if I really wanted to impact people, I had to get in front of it. I had to start helping people at the source, which is managing their stress.
Okay. So how does I guess when on a pretty bad scale, what does stress typically look like? How does it affect maybe say an entrepreneur?
So entrepreneurs especially, it leads to burnout because we're trying to solve problems and trying to grow and network and do all of these different things. And so that quickly moves us through the 3 stages of stress. We move from the alarm stage to the resistance stage when we're still kind of managing to the stage of exhaustion. And that's where we start to see the really serious negative health effects of stress, like prolonged high blood pressure, which leads to heart attacks and strokes. It also can lead to kidney disease, certain diseases like multiple sclerosis and ALS, the Lou Gehrig's disease. That's also been linked to stress. So there's a very vast amount of things that are linked to this stage of exhaustion that a lot of us find ourselves in.
Okay. And what about, is all stress a bad thing?
Absolutely not. We need good stress. So there's a stress curve that looks like a normal bell curve. And there's this really nice sweet spot between being really bored and not having enough going on to being completely burnt out. So there's a nice sweet spot. It's called eustress, EUSTRESS. And that's the kind of stress that really gets us driven, that gets us moving and creating the traction that we want in our business. So that's the perfect amount of stress.
Okay, so in essence, not to being bored on the couch. What's that song on TikTok? What's the song that kids are singing nowadays? Bored in the house?
Yeah, exactly.
So
And the
not
neat
that.
thing is when we're in that moment of eustress, that sweet spot on the stress curve, there are certain ways that our body responds to the stress differently than it does when we're on the burnout side of it. So when we're in the more negative side of stress, when we're in the burnout, not coping as well, the blood vessels around our heart and our body, they all get really tight. And so that's what leads to the increased risk for heart attack and stroke. But when we're in that eustress phase, the blood vessels around our heart stay open. And so that makes a huge difference in lowering your risk of all of those chronic diseases down the road.
Now, what about, because let me see. So in terms of, because as you said, there's stress to like, what's the highest level of it? Is it exhaustion or something?
Yes, the stage of exhaustion, that's right.
Now, can someone still function from exhaustion, right? Like, let's say you enjoy pushing yourself to the limit, right? Because I believe that there's some individuals, they just like push so hard, but then they're okay with it. Is that possible to where you could push really hard, but still be like function normally?
To a degree. So when you're pushing yourself hard and you're still able to maintain your normal activities and still get that drive and to be able to move forward with your business, you're still in the stage of resistance. Your body is still coping. So when we're in this high stress mode, even when it's good stress, our body sends out more adrenaline because we need to have more oxygen moving around, more heartbeat faster and all those different things. But that requires more energy. So then our body comes to the rescue with a hormone called cortisol, which in the media it seems to be getting a very bad rep, but actually It's a superhero because your body is needing all this extra energy. And so cortisol runs around everywhere to get energy from all kinds of different places. So it gets your cells reaching out to your brain saying, hey, we're hungry, go eat something, we need more energy. And then it also talks to different organs like your liver, which can create energy on its own. So when you're still able to push forward and you're still doing really well, you're still in that stage of resistance. But eventually we hit a wall where our body says no. And that's where it starts to work against you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in essence, while you're working with entrepreneurs, what do you think is the, just based on working with them, what's that main culprit? Is it just pushing too hard? Is it trying to do too much? Is it not taking breaks? What do you think causes?
It's taking on too much and not streamlining as much as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
there's 4 main pillars that you need to do as an entrepreneur to be able to manage your stress and keep things low. And so the first one is to reprogram your self-talk, to be able to take back control from that inner critic that can keep us blocked and stuck, because our inner critic is the main source of our stress, because
Mm-hmm.
they don't like change. They want everything to stay the same. So if you change something like start to grow a business or start doing different things in your business, your inner critic's going to run around, push all the panic buttons and try and make it stop. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take back control from that inner critic. The next step is streamlining as much as possible. And we're in such a great age. There's so much great technology out there that can help us with all of these things. There's VAs that you can hire. There's different team members that you can take on. And if you're not ready to take on a team, that's okay. There's still lots of great tools that you can use that will help streamline that part of it. And then the next pillar is to take control of that stress response and really do a lot of things to minimize the negative health effects of that, because there's lots of things that we can do for that aspect of it. Because then that allows you to move into the last pillar, which is where you're really empowered and owning that and stepping into that full CEO role.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one thing you said is the first place it kind of starts, that first phase is just the self-talk, right? So meaning that you get into maybe doing something or get into change or having to do something different, something new. And then because you're new at it and it's different or whatever, the self-talk that goes on in your mind, it kind of messes with you in a sense. Maybe just it's like you've never done it, so there's an uncomfortable feeling and you're like dreading it and you're like trying to avoid it and stuff like that. Is that kind of what you mean by the critic, the self-talk in there?
Absolutely. So whenever we try something new that goes different from our normal programming, our
Mm-hmm.
body responds to that as fear and danger in the same way that it responds to a bear chasing down, like running at us. So we need to be able to create distance from that reaction, from that fear, so that we can be like, I understand that this is different than what's before, but I know that this is in the best interest for me and my business and all of my goals. So to
Mm-hmm.
be able to create distance from that fear-based persona, which
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people identify as their inner critic.
Yeah. Now, how does someone do that? Do you have any techniques for helping someone do that? Because I know that once you start as an entrepreneur, a lot of the things you need to do is things that you get into this thinking like, yeah, you have this visions of success, but then when you really realize what it's going to take to succeed, and it's mostly doing things that, number one, you've never done before, number two, you're just uncomfortable, and number three, you just don't even want to do it. How does someone train that inner critic to say, okay, this is good? Do you have any type of process or something that you could share?
Absolutely. So it kind of ties back in with the stress response as well. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're kind of in this default survival mode programming, which is where often we start when we don't have that mindset work and that distance from the fear-based persona, it's like we're in a little boat in the middle of the ocean. And so when we're doing everything that's the same,
Mm-hmm.
everything's fine, the waves are gentle, the sun is shining, everything's great. But when we start to do something different, or when a lot of stressors start piling up, it's like the perfect storm hits. And so we're in that little boat holding on for dear life with our inner critic in there with us, and we're just getting tossed about. We can just only react to things. We can't really see what's coming down the tube to have a more response
Mm-hmm.
aspect to it.
Yeah.
But what we can do is turn off that stress response.
Mm-hmm.
And because with the ocean, when it's all perfect stormy up on the top, if you drop 30 to 40 feet below, it's completely calm and not affected at all by what's happening on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the kind of calm that we want to be able to drop into. High power CEOs know how to do this. emergency room staff, ICU room staff, they all know how to do this too. And it all is with breathing, because with our stress response, when we're trying something new and the stress response turns on, that's when the fight, flight, or freeze response kicks in. And so when that's happening, our body's trying to make us most successful. So our heart is beating fast, we're breathing really quickly, our blood pressure is up, but that's also where we get cut off from that higher level thinking brain. Because if you think about it, your stress response was designed to get you away from a bear. So when a bear is chasing you, contemplating the meaning of life is not exactly a priority. So it shuts off that part of your brain. So if you want to get access to that part, which is what we need to be able to be in that calm space that can sort of see the bigger picture, we need to turn off that switch. And so in the rest and digest side, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calm space, our breathing is slow, our heart rate is down, our blood pressure is lower, and we have access to the higher level thinking brain. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to slow down our breathing, because we don't really have much control over our heart rate or all those different things, but our breathing, we can do something consciously with. So what I recommend is a 5-5-5 breathing technique. So you take 5 deep breaths for 5 seconds on the exhale, 5 seconds on the inhale, 5 seconds on the exhale. And then if you take that one step further and you do that 5 times a day, you're going to keep turning off that stress response repeatedly throughout the day. So you keep programming your mind to stay in that calm and rest and digest side more often.
Breathing is a fascinating thing as well. So I found it's one of those interesting topics where I never really understood it. But when I started like seeing how other people have been benefiting from like just breathe and how breathing could change, it's just like a game changer for a lot of people. So now the second thing you mentioned was streamlining stuff as well too, because I know that as entrepreneurs, it's one of the things where to build a business, I know most of the individuals I work with, they're typically coaches, consultants, service providers who really want to grow, scale their businesses. And there's a lot to do. There's a lot of different systems, processes, different hats, gears you need to switch into to really, if you really want to perform at a high level. Um, and you said as far as getting streamlined the whole process. Now, what have you found? I guess just based on your own journey, because I know you mentioned VAs and stuff like that who could help streamline the processes, technology, and those different things. Do you typically recommend someone streamline as everything that they can? How far do you take streamlining?
As far
Or
as
how far should you
possible.
take it? As far as possible?
As far as possible. I am a super type A ICU nurse personality. So everything which I can make as simple as possible and have notifications come in to remind me to do things. So for example, we know that social media and stories are all really important to do, but to try and think of what to post every day and what to do for a story every day can be really challenging when you're like in working on growing your business and networking and all those things. It's kind of the last thing on your mind. So what I've done is set up using a social media scheduler. It sends me a prompt to my phone for what to talk about on my story. And it's related to how I've streamlined my messaging. So it'll say, talk about pillar 2 and how you've integrated that into your life recently. And so then it's a really quick thing. It takes me 30 seconds to do a story and we're done. So it's simplifying as many things as possible. Plus, an easy way to scale your business, I've found as a coach and consultant, is to pick a niche that's a more general niche like stress. And then looking at how you can narrow that down to different demographics. Because again, stress is universal. Everybody experiences stress to some degree, but then learning how to market that to different places in a similar way that is still really streamlined, it allows you to expand your audience in a very simple way.
Yeah, that's some powerful stuff you just shared right there. Because I know that, and that's something I've experienced in my journey as well too. Because when I first started off, it was just me doing every single thing, right? And then I started realizing, okay, you gotta streamline. So I started making for myself templates, blueprints, like little checklists I use. And most of my courses, that's typically what they're made of, is what got us to 7 figures. I kind of give them to my clients, just say, hey, just model this thing, right? But that's one gear. The next really big shift I made, because I started realizing I had all these processes, checklists, systems, but I was still managing them versus when I added like a VA or someone to where now they could take that own system and run it and create the content, post and do all these different things. It's just like a total game changer. So, and you said take control. The third step is taking control. How does someone take control um, of the I guess with stress and stuff? How do they take control?
So there's a couple really easy ways. Breathing, like we talked about, that's a really good way to turn off that stress response on a regular basis. But one of the easiest ways that you can repair the damage that stress does to your body is to join a group that understands you. So there was a research study that was done where they looked at a bunch of different groups, different kind of demographics,
Mm-hmm.
and they looked at their DNA. And so they realized that these people that lived a very high stress life, their DNA starts to unravel. And there's these little caps that are on top of your DNA. They're called telomeres. And the more stress you have, those telomeres get worn down, and then your DNA starts to unravel and unspin. And so what that leads to is all kinds of different signs of premature aging, and it can also lead to things like cancer. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is a very significant thing that stress can cause. However, when these groups of people were put in a support group kind of space where they felt understood, where they knew that they could talk about their concerns and all of the different stresses, and all they had to do was feel heard, understood, and that there was somewhere to belong. There didn't have to be any facilitation, any other mindset work. They just had to be heard. That actually re-raveled up their DNA and healed the telomere caps. So it completely reversed the damage that stress had caused to those cells.
Awesome, love it. And you heard that, guys? If you're a listener right now, hey, that's one of the reasons why I put together the high ticket coaching and consultant community. Be sure to
Yes,
come. Heather's in there. We're all in there. Be sure to come join us, right? Um,
absolutely.
and the final thing you said, the final step. What was the final step? I wrote down SPEP.
So
I
it's
have no
to,
idea what that means, right? What's the
I'm
final
not sure
step?
either.
So the
So
fourth step, right? Is it sleep?
sleep falls into step 3, but yeah,
Okay, good.
the fourth step is really stepping into that role as a digital CEO and the
Mm-hmm.
CEO of your life as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, with that self-talk with the inner critic, how would things be different for you if they were just like a department manager that brought information to your attention for your consideration? But instead of keeping you down, making you feel fearful and worried, you're just like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe I should consider that. Or like, I think we're going to be okay. We'll go forward without it. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to have that empowerment space just changes everything.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you said your background is in terms of you were a nurse, right?
That's right. Yes, I
Yeah.
was a registered nurse in the ICU.
Yeah. Do you still do that at all, or did you move away from that?
I was doing it until about a year and a bit ago, and then I
Mm.
moved away from it because this business grew so well, and I just this is where I'm meant to be. This is truly where my passion is. I
Yeah.
do miss the ICU. It was a good time, but
Yeah.
this
Now,
is definitely where I belong.
is your business mostly virtual, or is it in person? How's your business?
Mostly virtual. I do some local workshops on stress management and whatnot, but usually that's more for lead generation to bring people into the other virtual side of the business. But then with the corporate consulting, it is very much an in-person event. So I do either a keynote presentation, which is typically about an hour, 90 minutes, or I do a half day or full day intensive, and then follow up with a 12-week training. So they get one email a week with a little short video and an action step to try and put things together. Because really, like when you go to a corporate training, it's really great and you're super fired up, and then as other things pile on, that kind of gets pushed to the back. So it's just to keep it moving forward and to keep them applying what they've learned in that session.
Hmm. And why coaching and consulting? What drew you into coaching and consulting?
So as a nurse, it was almost like there was an invisible neon open sign above my desk at all times. And so other staff, doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, other people would come to my desk to ask for advice, to get my thoughts, just to vent and have a safe place to feel heard. And so I've just always had that kind of energy that people are drawn to. And I never take a train ride without learning some stranger's life story. It's just part of me and who I was. So to be able to fully own that and become fully authentic in that aspect of myself has just been a really wonderful part of this business journey.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And one of the things I love is just to find individuals who they're now like building businesses around their passion. Because something I like to say is that most individuals they get stuck doing whether it's a physical labor job or 9 to 5 and working, slaving their life away to really not making any difference. I believe we all get to a certain point in our lives where we could kind of realize that that's just not what we want to do. And we just say, you know what, screw it. I got to go find the thing I'm passionate about. And I love bringing individuals like yourself on because, again, you started with one career path and then you switched, and now you come from a place of you're good at something, you know what you're good at, you know how you can help, and now you're actually building a business, helping others. So I think so many people need to hear this message as well, too, because I know, especially with what's happening with COVID-19 today, to where everyone is at home trying to figure out, well, is this the end? What's going to happen? Am I going to still have a job? Versus if you could figure out what you're good at, what knowledge that you have, and figure out how to get yourself online to get that information to the individuals who need it, that's the biggest leverage there. And that's exactly what Heather's doing right now. So I guess, Heather, the next question now becomes, based on where you are right now with in your life and the success you've created for yourself, in terms of stories, is there any stories in your life that you could attribute as far as, hey, that story kind of got me to being the person I am today, the success I am today? Do you have any other story? I know there's probably a lot of them, but does anyone come to mind?
Yeah, actually. So the reason why I'm so jazzed about getting people empowered and owning who they are is because growing up, I feel like I very much fell into what I should be doing. You should finish school, go on to get a degree, you should go into a career and follow this line and toe the party line until you retire. And I think I always knew that that wasn't quite right, but it was just hard to break free from that. And so there was a number of different things that happened along the way that sort of broke down those beliefs in quite a difficult way. And it was always sort of a mindset shift that needed to happen for me too. Lots of inner work. And once you break through and rise above that next level, now you've got a whole new perspective. And you're just like, oh, so now what's next? So it just kept building and building, and so many different things occurred to make that happen.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. Now, what about the next one is skills. Have you learned what one skill would you say is responsible for the majority of your success?
Overcoming my inner critic, because the idea of getting out there in the entrepreneurial space means that done has to be better than perfect, and you have to be okay with what I call the first pancake version of something. So you know how like when you're making pancakes, the first pancake's always a little bit wonky,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fine and still good, but you just have to roll with it. And so it's just embracing the unexpected and being okay with realizing that that first try was maybe not the best, but you still have to keep going because your success is inevitable so long as you don't stop.
Yeah, I think I had a previous guest on the show, and she said one of the biggest things is just like the crawl, meaning that when you get started with anything, with life, with business, all the different things, your journey is never going to be one where you just get in your Ferrari and just drive down the freeway to success. Like there's always going to be a bunch of traffic lights. There's going to be a speed bump. There's going to be a pothole in the road. There's going to be all these different things, and it's going to take you off your game, right? But the whole key is to stay the course, put one foot in front of the other, and just really persist, I guess you could say, right?
Absolutely. And don't blame yourself for when something doesn't go according to plan, because there are 99% of things that have nothing to do with you. There's all kinds of different things that influence every situation. You
Mm-hmm.
can only control how you show up, what you've planned to do, how you're going to implement that, but you can't control all of the other things. So people that went to a launch right before COVID hit, they can't control that. They just have to roll with it and embrace the unexpected and keep
Mm-hmm.
going forward. And that's really with that last part, the four pillars, it's about realizing what you can control and letting go of what you can't. Because when you let go of all the little things that you really can't control, you actually feel so much more in control because you're
Mm-hmm.
being shown evidence of what you can actually influence.
Yeah. And final question is, what about habits wise, right? Because I know one of the most something individuals, and I know for myself, that's something I do as well too. Because like before I became an entrepreneur, I had certain habits, and then I realized if I wanted to be successful, there were certain things I had to either cut out or start doing, and these different things to make it in this as an entrepreneur. So, what about yourself? Is there any habit you've had to develop as you're on your journey to kind of help you become successful?
Absolutely. So I think my biggest habit is consistency, to
Mm-hmm.
keep showing up. But I've discovered that you almost have to become a habit ninja, because when you try and change things too fast, your body responds with your stress response. It recognizes that something's different, that you're trying to change something, and it doesn't like that. Your body doesn't like change. It wants to go back to the way things were. So you need to create these habits in a way that's more subtle. So it works with your body. So that way you don't ramp up that stress response and have your body working against you, making it harder.
Yeah, that's so powerful as well too. Habits are a fascinating thing. I know for myself, just like with one of the things I realized I really needed to do a habit was networking. But for me, I can't stand the fact of being behind my computer and exchanging like messenger messages on Facebook, right? Facebook and LinkedIn. And that's one of the reasons I saw this show, because I knew that, hey, if I just got a group of people scheduling calls and scheduling to be on the show, that's going to force me to make the habit inevitable in a sense. I love that thinking of inevitability, thinking like thinking about what it is that you want to do, because just like you said, when you want to do something, you'll especially if you want to do it at a really high, fast pace, your body will find a way. As much as you feel like you want to do it and you're going to get it done, that mind is like a trickster. It'll let you think that you're going to do it, but next thing you know, that thing will not happen, right? And you got to figure out
Absolutely.
how do you structure it, whether it's in your day, you schedule something to make sure it happens. Awesome. So that's some amazing stuff you shared here. So now the final question is, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to reach out?
So I'd recommend they come to my website, which is heatherthatcher.com. There's lots of great stress management resources on there, and I also have an entrepreneur specific stream for the stress management that speaks to that, and that's also linked there on that website.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. And so guys, if you're watching this on the live or on the replay, everything Heather just shared here with us today, all the links, they will be right below this video. Okay. So Heather, any final thoughts before we end?
Just remember that you are not your thoughts, you are the thinker of your thoughts. So if you have any self-doubt or anything like that creeping in as you're moving forward to fastly scale your business, remember that that's just that part of your body that's scared of change, but that's not you. And so you're able to take back control from that part of you that's scared and fearful.
Love it. Awesome. Well, in that case, Heather, thank you so much for stopping by. Really, really appreciate it. And we will be in touch. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Extus.